Okay. I hope the transition didn't fall flat on your turret. Yep. That's pretty funny. Lol. Okay, that works now. Alright. Some of my images are created, but that's all just boring. But the main point is just you can hear my voice loud and clear now. I'm not sure if my previous videos you could hear me clearly broadcast stuff. Oh, I didn't know I put in my fish shoulder. There's long time old digital art I made. These are all concepts. Yeah, just forget. I'm going to add more soon, of course. Did I just click wrong again? Let me just add the files. So oh, it's just viewing it now. Lol. Very funny. Okay. Yep. I'm not sure if. Yep. Getting some old images on there, and I'm not sure you'd be interested. This is just a test, by the way. I forgot to mention it at the start. It's a test, not a fraud. Yeah, I just put it under whatever. So this is just funny. Are you scared of risks? Of course I do. So does everyone else. Almost everyone across the world does. Yeah, I've been live for 4 minutes now. I'm just checking if how many is in the chat. Nope. Oh, it looks like his sounds fine and dandy. blanked off right now. Blender might just do it somehow. Where's this video? Let me just check this guy. I don't want to get copyright strike, so just wait.
This is an ad for a project management tool called Monday.com. This is what it looks like, and this is what it feels like.
Okay. The video ran into problems, and now I have to fix it. Warning, recording saved to MP4 will be recoverable if the file cannot be finalized. If you want to record multiple audio tracks, consider using MKV and remix the video to MP4 after it's finished. Yeah, I remember that I restorized and recorded multiple tracks in MKV but with footage using Blender. So I don't know how that went, but my final product came out really awkward. It wasn't as the best. It wasn't the best, I would say. The render animations fell flat and fell short, I'll say it. I just feel like will be stamped out, but I'm just going to try next. Alright, so let me just show this. Oh, it's not showing up now, it's just showing down. Oh, lol. Oh, that's word tools, and never mind. Weird scribbles by me, of course. Weird scribbles. By the way, it's not iOS, it's on my PC. Funny thing, it's under news and politics. I'm not sure if my thing is unneeded. Hello, who's the guy? Hi, only one person yet. Let me check. Just type in say hi. Oh, that's rather strange. We have multiple screens on this. Oh, what did I make? Lol. Yeah, this is a normal chat. Alright. I'm now like literally a head away from the microphone. Let's check if you still can hear me. Okay, so the sounds alright. I just keep it to a minimum.
Insist upon freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom to bear arms, freedom of and from religion, freedom of the press, freedom of ownership, freedom of the economy, and
this guy is repeating a bit too much. You don't have to say everything's freedom. Freedom economics, or freedom of anything. Freedom of this, freedom of that. And please try not to conflate libertarians with anarchists. Libertarians are the American conception of anarchism, or the so-called French conception of anarchism. The libertarianism arose from Joseph Dijak, who was the person behind the renaming of the so-called left-wing movements because of government crackdowns at the time. Well, supposedly it was the French government at the time because they were cracking down so-called anarchist bomb throwers, and they got rid of a lot of political dissidents that were considered anti-state at the time. Yeah.
they almost always oppose the welfare state and taxation, which they see as a form of slavery. Or as the American Libertarian Party puts it, we hold that all individuals have the right to exercise sole dominion over their own lives and have the right to live in whatever manner they choose, so long as they do not forcibly interfere with the equal rights of others to live in whatever manner they choose.
Yeah, here's this one. If you're talking about the libertarians, you should look at the historical aspect, not at the current libertarian parties. It's like me looking at the Tories to understand what the Tories used to be. It's like that kind of dichotomy, or they call it the not so historically accurate narrative.
Now that sounds pretty damn reasonable, right? Penn Jillette and Michael Shermer seem to think so.
But why are you trying to reference Michael Shermer? Which was Penn Jillette and Michael Shermer seem to think so. So that lotion.
I voted Libertarian for many years now.
I've leaned Libertarian most of my life since
I leaned Libertarian
college.
As does Ron Paul.
They said the role of government ought to be but one thing: protect liberty. That's the purpose of government.
Clint Eastwood.
And now you have
purpose of government protect liberty. Well, you make the mild distinction that Ron Paul is a different kind of libertarian to the so-called Libertarian Party. You know, Ron Paul, his policies are almost very mirroring fascism of the Mussolini type, not the Hitler type, of course, the Mussolini type, in the idea that the government should maintain liberty through the intervention methods and etc. Government intervention, anyone heard of that? Yep. So what libertarians in America is supposedly is that they want to self-maintain their lives, self-regulate themselves, which with the absence of a external government body or body of politics. How do I put this way? Basically, libertarians have this very skewed views of liberty, and they do not understand the essence, what the fundamental rights of man, so they chuck out a lot of the old principles that made up the original anarchist thought, and these libertarians, to be honest, are derived of anything that is liberty. The liberty that they try to enforce is nothing. Is this absolute carelessness and inflexibility, and do anyone do whatever they want mentality. It's very non-authoritative. If you want to get rid of government, you need a good government or institution. You need to replace it with something that is able to allocate economic system or social system that will be able to uplift the social order.
Called yourself a libertarian, is that right? Is that correct?
Yeah, well, libertarian values, that's where Republicans used
Libertarian values, just say money.
to be when they were saving money and everything.
And according to libertarian websites, Keanu Reeves, Chris Rock, Vince Vaughn, Will Wheaton, Matt Groening, and countless more. And so why doesn't it convince me? Well, what follows is my three primary reasons. This is why I'm not a libertarian.
This is so anecdotal, dudes. Why are you trying to claim you're not libertarian when you sound such a British accent? You sound more British than I am. Oh, that's a joke, by the way. So there's a clear distinction. You can see through that. So you already referenced the U.S. Libertarian Party, while you ignored the U.K. Libertarian Party. I lost my voice there. The UK Libertarian Party is basically the same strong arm of the American Libertarian Party, but somehow you did not try to mention this at any case when you were about to say, well, I'm not a libertarian. So this sounds very anecdotal. If you want to debunk some political diagram or political paradigm, then you have to dig deeper than this, man. It's not anecdotal. Believing in ideology, you think believing in ideology is somewhat a concept that you can debunk religion. Quite contrary, the political movements have different stance in the policies, and at most of the times they do not adhere to the policies. So I see that religious as a institution are organized, and a lot of libertarian institutions are not well so organized. They're organized are very somewhat decentralized or more capitalist standard when it comes to the Americans, enlightened Americans, I would say.
Arian.
Yeah, he played his intro.
That I've ever heard of comes from Walter Edward Williams.
Why are you taking books to talk about it? Stop even trying to be an edgy thought. You're not edgy thought.
Who in his book titled All It Takes Is Guts wrote the following. But let me offer you my definition of social justice. I keep what I earn and you keep what you earn. Do you disagree? Well then, tell me how much of what I earn belongs to you and why. And so, what's my answer? Why do I think that strangers are entitled to some of Walter's fruit? Well, to put
fruit, I think I want to illustrate here and hope Mr. Roos, to elaborate on his so-called points. What he means is the fruit of labor. Why should he's asking the dichotomy whether some strangers should have a cut of Walter's, the example he gave, Walter's labor, his work, his wage, etc. Labor can be the fruit of his labor.
Put it bluntly, Walter fell out of the right vagina at the right time. He inherited a biological and/or socio-economic advantage that he did not earn, and thus he does not deserve all of the fruit of his labor. He was dealt good cards. Now, Walter came from a broken family in a relatively racist country, and so how the hell can I say that he had an advantage? Well, for him, it's got more to do with nature than nurture, and to explain why, let me rewind a bit. In 1971, the American political philosopher John Rawls wrote a theory of justice, and within it, he, as many of you likely know, observed that when people contemplate and determine the structure and rules of society, they do so selfishly, based on their personal circumstances, characteristics, and preferences, such as their mental and physical.
The theory of justice, talking about people's anecdotal characteristics, preference, and the mental capability of physical justice. This has nothing to prove what you're trying to say, unfortunately, because a theory of a justice is an external thought, and if you apply an external thought to a libertarian point of view, it becomes instantly an oxymoron, because libertarians do not believe in external institutions. There they have this idea of the individualist. The individual is all itself, or somewhat like Iran is also not a libertarian, but people most libertarians in America want to perpetuate this notion that how do I word this? Perpetuate this notion that a lot of so-called famous celebrities back in the past were libertarians, when a lot of them did not even align themselves with that ideology. From a historical point, if you want to look at that.
Abilities, social status, ethnicity, gender, and, most crucially, their conception of what's
conceptual of what's good is part of the theory of justice, social justice. Well, regarding this Walter's social justice aspect, is he born in a privileged family? Well, of course he's born in the New York. Not New York, sorry, born in America. Do you not know Americans in general are like comparatively wealthier than 96% or 98% of the world? So basically, they kind of like the 2 or 1% of the global population in terms of wealth accumulation. So yeah, of course there will be social inequality justice at looking at the theory of justice when on a global scale. But I don't think this argument ties anything into the conception of libertarian thoughts. That you're not shooting down his argument or anything. You're just referring to books. I'm sorry, referring to books is not good enough. We need to refer to a certain we need to, okay, I will keep it simple for you. We need to keep argument straight to the point, as well as keeping it to at challenging a point of view and expanding on the queries of this point of view, not trying to rectify or confirm somebody's point of view, because you are you, and your argument does matter in the terms of what the importance of the so-called obligation is.
Good. Thus, it's no surprise that some people who can afford the bare basics, such as shelter...
That's a really good term to say.
Thus, it's no surprise that some people who can afford the bare basics, such as shelter and food, want a society in which they're not obliged, through tax...
European, he's like maybe Irish, take that back, but Northern Ireland people who are Irish, of course ethnically Irish, but they're living in Britain, so the British accent.
...to pay towards other people's bare basics. Likewise, it's no surprise that some people who can afford to pay for their family's medical bills want a society in which they're not obliged, through tax, to pay towards strangers' medical bills. Just as it's no surprise that...
I think you're conflating a bit. You need to consider the situation in America. In America, there's medical insurance. Your tax does not go into the medical system. The medical system in America is privatized. So when you're talking about the U.S. Libertarian Party, that's not kind of possible, you know. Maybe Obamacare, but Obamacare is like an offshoot of the private sector and the corporation sector who um who monopolize the medicine, and people do not have access to free medical care, and from free medical care you come the taxes. So in order to say that people who don't want to pay the tax because they don't want to contribute to somebody's health and supporting other people who are more needy for the health plan is a bit jarring to me, because America doesn't have this system already, and you can't argue in this manner because they don't have a properly set system other than the Obamacare, which is an offshoot of the medical privately owned establishment. And if you want to disagree with this, you can take a look at the medical research center of what's it called? Yeah, you can take a medical research center of Chicago, where they literally state the university is privately owned and for profit. And you need to understand that most American so-called good care hospitals are privately owned, so they are more in tune to getting insurance companies who pay for their patients. So yeah,
some people who can afford to send their children to school
can't
want
afford to send their children to school. Man, stop trying to act like an internationalist. You're not a globalist, of course, but being internationalist is a person who makes generic statements. Man, Mr. Rules, where are your rules when it comes to elaborating on situations? Stop being so generic. Target the main point. Stop trying to act like emo Jesus.
Society in which they're not obliged.
America's a capitalist society, by the way. You think capitalist society would upbring people and or prefer people to contribute to the tax system? Definitely not. Most of the tax professionals avoid those loopholes in the tax system, and they avoid paying tax. I'm not trying to generalize, but it happens to be the case, unfortunately.
Through tax to pay for other people's children to go to school, and so on and so forth.
It's a very bad term. So on and so forth. Even me taking my time speaking would have done a lot of more sense than using that equivalent to the etc. term.
But the only reason they seek such a society, Rawls argued, is because of their lucky circumstances. They've been dealt good biological and socio-economic cards, and as such, they stand to lose a card or two should society attempt to equalise the hands of those less fortunate. Now, to get around this prejudice, Rawls proposed what he called the original position, and argued that a just society is a society that if you knew everything about it, you'd be willing to enter it in a random place.
Such a random quote. John Rawls. A just society is a society. Why are you talking about justice in society? Are you talking about contributing tax is justice? What is considered justice in a social society then? So you're trying to pervert social justice in a view by hammering out a random quote by John Rawls? What? Social justice is about paying more tax? I'm presuming that what you mean is this, that bringing social justice where like having social equality by paying more tax, everyone contribute to the tax to the government, then you have equality in the workplace and stuff. It's not that simple. You need to look further deeper. It's too shallow.
He reasoned that if people determine the basic structure of society behind a
and plus, I'm not even a libertarian, so what the fuck are you talking about?
veil of ignorance, which would deprive them of information about their specific characteristics such as their ethnicity, social status, and gender, they would create a welfare state.
That's so random. As this is not a social status agenda, they would create a welfare state.
They'd elect a society that maximizes the prospects of the worst off, because they themselves.
Why are you blaming? Why are you blaming libertarians? Most American libertarians are not even proper. Most of them who support Ron Paul are sensationalists, and most of them are internet dwellers on social media. Do you think they would give a heck about voting for the favorite leaders or stuff? Can you stop do clickbaiting about generalizing people, big group? People are not that simple, people are more diverse in their thoughts, and your view is that the social inequality considered, so that you have to maximize. So these prospects that the libertarians produce are one of worst prospects because they themselves are
Might be the worst off.
Might be the worst off. Society as a whole, libertarians, they themselves are socially awkward,
They'd create a society that would ensure that if they or their loved ones were born blind, deaf, or dumb, they.
What is this establishment thinking? Oh my gosh, dude. Where are you coming from? You're randomly saying stuff.
They'd nevertheless have a life worth living. Thus, this is the primary reason I'm not a libertarian. Despite the fact that
I'm still not clear why you're primarily not libertarian. So basically, you don't contribute to tax, and you don't contribute to setting up of a welfare state. You yourself, that's the reason you don't want to claim you're a libertarian. Is libertarian trendy? I thought libertarian is a right-wing term, and you're trying to refer to it somewhat center or left-wing. That's not possible.
That I came from a broken family and had a very rough upbringing, I am extremely lucky to have
anecdotal evidence, anecdotal fallacy there. If according to you, it's anecdotal fallacy because you're putting in your own personal viewpoint rather than trying to be objective here. Subjective view, man. Anecdotal fallacy. The subjective anecdotes you're giving is a fallacious argument in this case because you're talking about the welfare state and how you doesn't believe in it.
Have the characteristics that I do. And while I've worked extremely hard to get where I am, I did not earn the temperament, patience, charisma, and, if you will, intellect that I have. I was simply dealt good biological.
Whoa. This guy has went full social Darwinist for a second. Take a look at read this. If you will, intellect that was grammar and simply dealt good biological cards. Biological cards. Lol. Do you even know what biological cards mean? Biological cards is his parental genes to pass down through generations. His genes matters. His genes determines his social status. What kind of madman thinks that I was dealt with good biological cards? You could have just said I had a good upbringing or I had a terrible upbringing, and people know it. You don't have to go this in depth, you emo.
Cards.
You're wearing all black and having long hair. I'm just calling you emo for the sake. Don't be offended, please.
Thus, I'm convinced that some of the fruit of my labour should go to those less fortunate, and that the same is true of.
It's your opinion. It's your decision. Then how are you going to argue against the libertarians then? How? Just because I'm not going to. Because I felt the hardships of the poor people or the working class, etc. So I'm going to give a bunch of my fruit of my labor to the people needy. Yeah, that sounds courageous, a charitable man. But what has this anything to do with not being a libertarian?
Walter's fruit. Now, Sam Harris, in a post titled "How to Lose Readers Without Even."
What kind of random sense are you to? You're trying to act smart, but you're not smart, dude. quoting Sam Harris doesn't make a difference. Sam Harris considered Satan atheist a bad influence on YouTube, and also a sadistic guy or psychotic. There's a video, I can link it to you if you want to contact me. Satan atheist thought to Sam Harris and watched one of the Dave Rubin video, which he talked about. Dave Rubin asked him about Satan atheist, what thinks of Satan atheist videos, and Sam Harris, I think, repeatedly said that I think it's his videos are not as interesting, not as entertaining, not as intellectually based in morality or something like that. But I can't remember clearly, but somewhat what's like that. Disapproval, I'll say that. And yeah, Sam Harris disapproved him, and the Satan atheists had all the right to claim his property and made fun of Sam Harris. So even to so-called loose readers, Sam Harris did lose readers on that part. He did lose readers. So it's kind of ironic that you're quoting Sam Harris losing readers without even trying, when he did try to lose readers.
Trying, which admittedly makes me a little nervous about my releasing this video, but Rawls is...
Compliment, man. You ironically shoot a hole in your own argument, man. Your self-doubt. Great. Video that's trying to argue not for libertarianism, to discourage people to be a libertarian, yet you are starting doubting yourself. Wow. Self-doubt is the biggest. I think there's a quote, self-doubt. Let me just read it off the proper self-doubt quote. Yeah, the worst enemy is to sorry, my mistake, that's the wrong one. The worst enemy to creativity is self-doubt. So you're self-doubting yourself. And another quote is by Alex Beeden: decide that you want it more than you are afraid of it. So you're afraid of yourself. Oh, cool.
Original position this way.
What the heck? This is a terrible cutout to the video. What is this page? He randomly screwed down the page. Wow. Oh gosh. Lord.
Many of my critics pretend they have been entirely self-made. They seem to feel responsible for their intellectual gifts, for their freedom from injury and disease, and for the fact that they were born at a specific moment in history. Many appear to have absolutely no
Okay, so what he's doing now is selectively taking parts of texts to support his arguments, with little reference to why libertarian had nothing to do with arguing against libertarianism or libertarian, or argue against freedom. And he doesn't clarify anything regarding this. One must be lucky to be intelligent. Why do you have to be lucky?
awareness of how lucky one must be to succeed at anything in life, no matter how...
This is just personal anecdotes, so you discard other people's anecdotes, but prefer your own chosen, selectively cherry-picked ideas. So, or context. So let's put this into context. You're trying to put up an argument against painting libertarianism as a rational idea without backing up what proposition it's. Give an example to why libertarian won't work in this situation. You haven't given any of that, so. That's just amazing, man.
How hard one works. One must be lucky to be able to work.
Oh gosh. Lucky to be able to work. Well, where is this power of academic anecdotal to subjective fallacies?
One must be lucky to be intelligent, to not have cerebral palsy, or to not have been bankrupt in middle age by the mortal illness.
Mortal illness of a spouse. What does this anything to do? Your simpletons won't understand. You think they would think that, oh, you're such a highly selective philosopher. You're so great. You're so great at pick and quote against libertarian ideology, against it, but without pitching up any examples for where libertarian won't work. So people who have libertarian will not understand why their ideology is like for completely anti-freedom or completely disregard of the needy or disregard of people who needs the services you put back into the system or the capitalist system, to be exact. Yeah, so yeah, just can't seem to grasp what this guy is.
Many of us have been extraordinarily lucky, and we did not earn it.
And we did not earn it. How you been so sure, dude? How are you so sure? Are you God? Oh, actually, no, you don't believe in God. Of course, you're atheist. So you believe in the almighty establishment, right? Who is secretly giving you these ideas. Why are you trying to so-called lecture libertarians? It won't work, dude. This way, they will not understand. Libertarians are not that literate, honestly.
Many good people have been extraordinarily unlucky, and they did not deserve it. And yet, I get the distinct sense that if I asked some of my readers why they were not born with club feet or orphaned before the age of 5, they would not hesitate.
Okay, so for this, would you be so extremely lucky that you were born with Down syndrome? Or you feel like you're so lucky that you're born with speech or stutter deficit? So, society has certain paradigms and values. They value the workers with the less needs. Workers with less needs, they companies and government prefers it because they won't spend much money on doing it due to maintain them, basically. So this analogy is a bit out of the blue from your point of view, I think, but it's related because society does not work as a cuddler trying to help everyone. Society is highly competitive. It's like the survival of the fittest, the social Darwinist strategy. I think you would know. It's not by biological upbringing. Oh, gosh, this guy. Middle-aged mortal illness of a spouse. So basically he's saying the mortal illness of spouse, when one of the spouse dies, they'll be consumed by psychological illness, I presume. Yeah, because it says mortal, it's like deadly illness. To be honest, a lot of psychological illness like depression are deadly. So please don't make that mistake. If you want to argue against my notion, please do. But you need to address your points clearly, of course. But I ramble on. You just present factual, so-called authoritative texts that were cherry-picked to support your argument.
hesitate to take credit for these accomplishments.
My team and
well
I.
Done. You finished. Wow, awesome! Such a great. Yeah, I just wanted to add in something. When people who's like doing YouTube videos, they have to follow a certain group, certain paradigms, appeal to certain audience. Of course, the appeal fallacy, which this guy uses a lot, like anecdotal fallacy. Yeah, you can check. Yeah, let's check if we do, and if you guys want to check what's the reason behind anecdote.
I've already talked about false generalizations and cherry picking, but I'd like to address yet another statistical fallacy here. Known is that those cases can't be verified, because they're mere anecdotes. Ghosts exist, I know, because I saw one last Thursday. Let's list the problems.
It's just because, yeah, you see, I'm right on this. I'm not trying to be narcissistic or cocky. So it looks like we're gonna finish, so I'll just turn it on. Yep, and let's start. Fish, have a good evening and subscribe to my